everyone. So today I'm going to introduce you to tonality and 4 different types of tonality in particular. And the first is modes, the second is major, the third is minor, and the fourth is atonal. Now to start talking about modes, we need to look at the medieval and Renaissance eras. So up until about 1550, where things started to change, composers used what we call modes. Now I'll just explain what a mode is. A mode is when we start at one note and we use all of the white notes to an octave, that's 8 notes above. So for example, let me show you with the keyboard. So if I just start here, you'll probably see better, I think. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G and A. That's all the white notes on A to A, and that is called the Aeolian mode. Okay? Now if I play B to B, C, D, E, F, G, can you hear we're getting a different sound? That's called the Locrian mode, B to B. C to C is the Ionian mode. Now you'll hear, if you've got expert in musical ears, you'll hear that that's actually the major scale. We'll come back to that in a moment. D to D is called the Dorian mode. E to E, the Phrygian mode. I'll come down a bit so you can see. F to F is the Lydian mode, and G to G is the Mixolydian mode. So that's what composers would have used for their compositions to write their pieces of music, and the tonal system that it was all based around. Now, going back to that Ionian mode, so you recognised it, I'm sure, as a major scale, and you know from lessons that we've had in the past that the Ionian mode, or the major scale, is based around tones and semitones in a particular order. And you're going to, I'm sure, going to echo the order now that goes tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Now if we put that on the keyboard again, on C major, you'll see that C to D is a tone, D to E is a tone, E to F is a semitone, F to G is a tone, G to A is a tone, A to B is a tone, and B to C is a semitone. Now you know very well that if we put that on another note, for example D, and we do tones and semitones in the same order, tone D to E, E to F sharp is a tone, F sharp to G is a semitone, G to A is a tone, A to B is a tone, B to C sharp is a tone, and C sharp to D is a tone. So you can put that Ionian mode on any note and it will create the same sound but just starting on a different pitch, and we know that as the major scale. So can you already see how composers of the early Renaissance period were realising that the Ionian mode was slightly more important than the other modes, and that's how it became major. Now, if we go back to the Aeolian mode, that was A to A, B, C, D, E, F, G and A, you might realise that that sounds very similar to our minor tonal system. And this is how minor was born. So Renaissance composers thought about different chords in this system, and they were coming up with a chord 5, which in A, B, C, D, E is the dominant, we call that chord 5, would have been E, G and B. Okay, now can you hear how that's actually E minor? And then if we go to chord 1 in Aeolian mode, which is A minor, we get that sound. So let me just play that again. Can you hear that's creating a full stop at the end of the statement? So we would call that a cadence, okay? But that cadence is quite weak. What composers realised was if they raised the 7th of the Aeolian mode, A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, A, so we've raised the 7th from G natural to G sharp, then chord 5 suddenly became E, G sharp and B, which is E major. So we get this when we play chord 5 to 1, which is a much stronger, what we call perfect cadence, chord 5 to 1. Okay, so can you see how the harmonic minor, we call it, with the raised 7th, was born out of the Aeolian mode, and the composer's wish to create a stronger cadence by raising that 7th. Okay, now one of the other terms I'd like you to learn now that we know how modes came about and how major and minor were born, is the idea of changing key. So within pieces of music, obviously they do change key, otherwise it would get pretty boring. And that's called modulation. So what I would like you to do is make sure that you've got that word in your vocabulary. When we change key, we are modulating. Now, one other tonal system that I'd like to discuss that I think is important for you to know about and understand is atonal. Then in the turn of the 20th century, at the end of the 19th into the early 20th century, composers such as Webern, Berg, Schoenberg decided that the romantic composers such as Wagner, for example, Mahler, Tchaikovsky, were modulating too often, so they were changing key too often. And the reason they were doing that was because they were romantic composers. They were trying to be very expressive, they were trying to keep their audience on the edge of their seat and to not be able to rest, to be just on edge the whole time. So they did that by changing key constantly, so they couldn't get settled in one key for very long. Now Schoenberg, I think, thought, no, we're not going to do this anymore, and he decided to get rid of key completely, which meant that we had atonalism. Now all atonalism means that we're not in a key, okay, and there is no tonal centre. No one note is more important than any other notes, any other degrees of the scale, which makes atonalism sound very, very dissonant. Now, when you come to complete the assignment that I've set, there'll be lots of YouTube links as well that you can listen to, and you will get an idea of the sound of atonalism as well as major, minor and modes, and see how that makes you feel. So atonal is a new word for you, meaning no key at all, no hierarchy of notes. Okay? There's also a couple of other tonalities that might come up, and that would be bitonality. So that obviously means just two keys going on at the same time. So for example, if I had C major and maybe D flat major or minor at the same time, you can imagine that again is going to create quite a dissonance. And polytonality even, meaning many tonalities at the same time, is obviously then going to create quite dissonant, and would only have been used really after the 20th century in more modern music. Hope that's helpful, and hope you get on well with your assignment now, and I shall see you later.